very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Wednesday afternoon. Bit of a transfer midweek roundup to let you know of the latest news, the latest players that we're meant to be linked to, etc. We know that Guilherme, his medical has been done, and we're just sort of waiting, really, aren't we, now, to hear of the player being unveiled as our first summer signing. Probably be maybe later on Wednesday, or could be later on this week. I was asked the other day, is it possible to actually unveil a player before the international transfer market opens on the 1st of July? And I said, well, yes, it is. It is possible to announce the signing of a new player. All we've got to say is that he will be a West Ham player from the 1st of July. And then I was asked, does that mean that other clubs can still come in and steal him from us? Well, not necessarily. He's done his medical. If he's signed on the dotted line with a contract, then, we unveil him as being our player from the 1st of July. The fact that the actual contract has been signed means that he's ours. Look, done enough videos on Guilherme. We're all looking forward to it, looking forward to him becoming a West Ham player and seeing what he can offer. I don't think he's going to become a first team starter. I genuinely think he's going to be an understudy to both Mohamed Kudus and Jared Bowen. He can play on the right hand side like Bowen does, and like Kudus does. He can also play in the middle as well. So whilst we're waiting for the unveiling of Guilherme, let's move on to other targets that we've been linked to. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, do hit the like button. Do become a subscriber of the channel. It's free to become a subscriber. Doesn't cost you anything. My content is always free. And if you don't have a YouTube account, you can set one up really easily by using your email address, setting up an account. You don't have to put any content on YouTube. Just become a subscriber of this channel. So who else are we linked to? Well, there are a number of players still in Brazil. Discussed the other day that Steidten is still over in Brazil trying to close a few other deals. There are players like Robert Renan, who I mentioned very briefly on the West Ham Weekly on Monday, as well as apparently us being back in for Wesley Gassova. Let's start with Renan. Interesting player, 20 years of age, centre-back who is currently another player that's on loan to International from this time from Russian club Zenit St. Petersburg. I say another player because, of course, we're interested in Vitao, who is on loan at the same club at International. Now, he moved to Zenit back in January 2023 on a free transfer from Corinthians. Now, back at the beginning of January this year, he went on loan. He spent a year at Zenit, but went on loan at the beginning of this year until the end of this year to International. He's made 19 appearances for the Brazilian club so far, and he's valued at something like around about 9 million euros. He's a versatile central defender who can also play as a left back. There's a suggestion that if we're unable to complete a deal for Vitao, who I'll come to in a moment, then we may turn our attention to Renan instead. In the year that he was at Zenit, he only made 18 appearances, so he's got a modest amount of experience of European football. Unlike, of course, Vitao, who's got a lot more experience. Now, of course, the other day, we heard the rumour that Nottingham Forest are now trying to steal a march on us to fight for his signature. At 24 years of age, and with a value of something like around 10 million euros, Vitao certainly has the advantage in experience over Renan. We're rumoured to have made a bid of just under 7 million euros, which has allowed Forest to come in with a higher bid for him. But Tim Steidten is confident that we can come to a better deal and get this signing over the line. He's a solid defender, a good distributor of the ball, which is something that Lopetegui will want from his defenders at the club. But at the same time, he's a bit of a no-nonsense type of defender, which we know we need in a team that conceded goals for fun last season. He's good in the air, and at 24 years of age, he's got still a long time ahead of him, and he can continue improving as a player. Steidten is certainly very keen to get the most out of his time in Brazil, and if he can add Vitao to the capture of Guilherme, I think he'd be more than pleased by doing that. I think he'll be even more pleased if he can add a third Brazilian to that list as well. Because we're still in for Wesley Gassova. Or let me rephrase, we're back in for Wesley Gassova. You may or may not be aware that the season in Brazil starts in April to the end of December. Wesley Gassova's club Corinthians are said to be negotiating a deal with West Ham where he can sign for us permanently, but loan straight back out to Corinthians to see out the Brazilian domestic league until the end of December. Now, after 8 games played this season, the Corinthians are struggling somewhat, having only won just 1 game, lost 4 and drawn 3. 19-year-old Wesley has developed through the youth system and has become quite an integral player for the club already. 66 appearances so far, have wielded 7 goals and 5 assists. He plays mainly as a left-sided attacking winger, but he can also play as a left-sided midfielder as well. He can also play along the front line. He can play as a striker. He can play on the right-hand side as well. But his strength is being on the left side of attacking midfield. He is direct, he's pacey, something that we've been sorely lacking at West Ham for quite a while. He's not the tallest of players, but his low centre of gravity and stocky build allows him to become quicker on the ball. He has a contract with the Corinthians until 2027, and are rumoured to be. They value value him at. I'll start that again. It's rumoured that they value him to be around £26 million. Now, I'm not too sure if West Ham are going to be willing to pay that sum of money for yet another teenager after already agreeing the fee for Guilherme. But herein lies another issue. Corinthians own only 70% of the player, with the rest owned by representatives. I guess that means agents. And that's the problem. You know, they want a large amount of money so that they can recoup quite a lot of it to reinvest back in the squad. Now, given that third-party ownership is not allowed over here, West Ham are going to have to try and negotiate their way through this small quagmire. Now, the original offer made was rumoured to be something like £12.5 million by West Ham. But if we can agree a deal, apparently now we're going back in for a deal of around 16 million. And as I've mentioned, to allow the player to stay on with the Corinthians until the Brazilian season ends, I dare say that there might be a deal in the offing. It could also mean that we might have to add on a similar sell-on clause to the one that we did with Guilherme's contract. Watch this space for this, because it seems Steidten won't be happy coming back from Brazil with only Guilherme as our only signing. Now, step away from Brazilian football for just a moment. There are other stories gathering pace as well, and that includes the potential targeting of Udinese and Argentine international defender Nehuen Perez. Now, at a fee of around £13.5 million for the talented but volatile central defender, many would say that this could be another bargain in the making. At the age of 18, Perez moved from Argentine side Argentino Juniors to Spanish club Atletico Madrid for a modest fee of €2 million. He then spent time on loan at various clubs, Famalicão in Portugal, Granada in Spain, and then in 2021, he moved on loan to Udinese, where his loan spell was made permanent for €8 million in 2022. He has since made 2 senior appearances for the Argentine national side as well. And apparently, if we cannot get a deal over the line for the likes of Vitao, then we may certainly turn our attention to Perez. Now, staying on the left side, of course, we're still apparently interested in Jota Silva, in bringing this Portuguese international to West Ham United from Vitória Guimarães. Now, again, we're rumoured to be interested in him. He wasn't in London, as all these stories were apparently being knocked out. Apparently, he is away with his agent at the moment. But I think it's an interesting one. If we can get this player, he sounds pretty decent. He's been called, although he looks like I can't remember the guy's name that didn't make the England squad. But apparently he's more like a Jamie Vardy in his type of football. So let's see what happens there. Another player, jump one ahead, sorry. Another player that, again, we've been rumoured to be interested in for quite some time now is Wilfried Zaha. Now, it's an interesting one, this one, because Wilfried Zaha was offered to us, as we've kind of heard, back in January. He wants to return to Premier League football, or will he now stay at Galatasaray to play Champions League football next season? Look, we know what he can offer: creativity, pace on the left-hand side. But do we also, at 31 years of age, do we also want to consider going for a much younger player? The player's name I forgot was Grealish, of course. Jota Silva looks like Grealish, but plays like Jamie Vardy. So back on to Wilfried Zaha. Do we want to go for a younger player? Or do we want to go for someone as experienced as Zaha? Look, there's a lot to be to get from Zaha, but let's see what happens. Apparently, Galatasaray could be interested in doing a deal where he goes out on loan with an option or an obligation to buy at the end of it. And finally, the latest and most recent transfer rumour is that we're in for Jorgen, or we've made inquiries about Jorgen Strand Larsen, the Norwegian Celta Vigo striker. He's with the club till 2028. He's valued at something like 23 to 25 million pounds, 24 years of age. Now, apparently in one story, he's been likened to Erling Haaland, and in another, he's been likened to Dominic Solanke. 6'4" striker, scored 18 goals in 73 appearances so far for Celta Vigo. He's a clinical finisher, hardworking, but there are areas in his game where he does need improving. Like he lacks a bit of consistency, and there are other areas that he can improve on. Look, he's primarily a central striker, but he can apparently also play out on the flank as well. Let's see what happens with this one. It's the latest in a long line of rumours. But what seems to be quite interesting with West Ham United is that they seem to be getting quite a lot of, I don't want to call them easy deals, but quite a lot of deals done in Brazil. It seems pretty obvious that, as I said, Steidten wants to come back with at least 2 or 3 Brazilian players, and then when the summer transfer window opens on the 14th of June in a couple of days' time, some of the real work will then start. You know, with the likes of maybe Jota Silva, maybe Larsen, and maybe 1 or 2 others. But it looks like we're forging ahead with quite a lot of transfer deals. I'm writing a script for another show that I've been prompted by one of my viewers to kind of explain, going back on the actual squadometer that I talked about the other day, because I think there might be an awful lot more movement than we kind of realize in the West Ham squad. And I'll explain why in the show that I'll put out tomorrow morning. But these are the latest transfer rumors. Like I said, we're waiting for the confirmation of Luis Guilherme. He's passed his medical. They're doing all the sort of the photo shoots and everything in order to announce him to West Ham. It could be later on today, on Wednesday, or it might be later on in the week. And like I said, we've got a couple of central defenders that we're interested in from Brazil, both on loan to Internacional. The first one being Robert Renan, and the other one being Vitao. Wesley Gassova, the story there is that we're apparently interested again in making a deal that could keep him there on loan, could sign him permanently for West Ham, but keep him on loan until the domestic season in Brazil ends, which is the end of December. Nehuen Perez is another target for central defence if we're not successful with Renan or Vitao. Jota Silva, and apparently is there's still an interest in him. And Wilfried Zaha could end up staying at Galatasaray to play Champions League football rather than coming to West Ham United. And the latest striker that we're interested in, or we've made inquiries about, is Jorgen Strand Larsen of Celta Vigo. Do look out for more stories, more shows coming up. I'll bring them up when the latest stories are available. There are plenty of other players that we're apparently interested in, but these are the latest ones. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do subscribe to the channel, as I've mentioned, and hit the like button, and I will see you all pretty soon.